Josh Robinson Show. I am Josh, of course, and I am not wasting any time today. I've got a panel of guests to get to because today is all about exactly this, creating content and why it's so important to create content in this time that we're in. We're going to just try and talk about as much stuff as we can in this next hour. I promise you this will not be a boring conversation at all. This will be a fun conversation to have with three different people and just people that I've talked to. I'll introduce Fowl first. He's been on the show before. Fowl, you've been, I don't know how many conversations we've had at this point. It's too many to go back and name them all, but you've been here before, Fowl. You're going back into podcasting soon. How is things, Fowl?
Yo, things are really interesting. Like last time I spoke to you, everything was different, and now everything is even more different. It's like this is officially the first show that I'm doing as a full-time content creator. Like this is today, June 1st. Yeah. And I love the fact that I'm on your show doing that. Like, it's official. Like I can survive for another few months just off the YouTube pennies. Like it's a fish. So it's crazy. Like it's crazy time. And everything else that's going on. Other than that, I'm great. Thank you very much. How you doing, Josh? You all right?
I'm excited. I'm just excited. I woke up like an hour ago. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go for the day. So I'm ready. We do have two other guests here on this roundtable today. We have one half of those wrestling girls, Queen PR. How are you doing this? It's your evening. I was going to say fine morning, but it is your evening. How are you?
It is my evening. I'm doing so good. Thank you. I'm so happy to be a part of this. So thank you for inviting us.
No problem at all. Of course, we've wanted to do something for a while. It's just never aligned, and it's just like this seems like the right time to kind of do this. Yeah, perfect timing. So I'm excited to have you on, and I'm really excited to hear just the continued success that you guys are having, because it's cool to see from the outside. So I'm sure we'll get into that.
You.
And of course, last but not least, we do have Rob of Bob Culture Pod. Rob, now we have been talking for a really, really long time. I think that's going to be the theme of this show, that we've just been talking and never anything is aligned to get together and do something. So I'm excited to have you here as well, because you've been killing it as well. It's like, so how are you today?
Well, I appreciate that, Josh. And as Matt Hardy always says, brother Josh, I knew you'd come. And guys, it's an honor right now to be sitting here and talk with you. I'm a fan of all your guys' stuff and podcast. Fowl, your YouTube content is amazing. I have a million questions to ask you off air. The production, phenomenal. You have a beautiful looking cyber living room as well right now, so that's great. You are. I love those wrestling girls. I love that guys highlight all these different amazing women, and I love those beautiful smiles in your guys' Instagram videos and some of those giveaways you guys do. So always feeling the positive.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Josh, the Iconics #1 fan. For having me here, man. I love your videos. You get some love from the Iconics. And what else can I say, Josh? Is you got to be joking me.
That was a fine moment for me last week when the Iconics, I was like, oh my God, I'm their friends. Yes. It's like the best thing ever. What a way to make the day. I was like, I've been recognized, validation.
Have you ever met them? Ever got a chance to meet them?
Oh my God, no, I wish. That's like a dream. You have. I've seen your photos with them.
Well, I have a signed 8x10 that might be coming your way, man, because I think you're their fan. So
I'll cry forever. Oh my God. I will cry forever. Listen, I could talk about the Iconics for 24 hours a day happily, and it would make my day. But we do have business to take care of at the moment. First and foremost, I want to know just how everyone's kind of doing these last. We kind of said in our brief little pre-chat before. Fowl, we'll just kind of go in this kind of order. This is just kind of the order that I'm going in. I know we've had little conversations here and there on Twitter, Fowl, about just the kind of current climate we're in at the moment, just with everything that's going on in the world. It seems to be like as soon as something gets, you say it's not going to get any worse, it gets worse. And I'm not trying to bring the tone down of the show, but I just feel like it's necessary just to, before we talk about our own content, is just kind of personally, how are you feeling, Fowl, in this, just with one thing after another? I mean, it's been just months of this just going on now. I mean, I started this year, my country was on fire, and I was like, well, what a horrible start to 2020. And then to see everything with COVID-19 and now all of this stuff over George Floyd and everything that's going on with this police brutality and all that awful stuff. And I've put all over Twitter, I'm very much trying to do the smallest part I can just to show some kind of support. But how are you coping with it, Fowl, just personally?
So, so when it comes to all of it, yeah, like it's been a really long year. Like for me, especially before all of this, like my whole plan was to quit my job in January, February and just start trying to do this. That was the plan to WrestleMania. That was my plan. Yeah, it was a logical plan. How is anything going to how they're going to cancel WrestleMania? Never going to cancel WrestleMania. Never going to cancel all that stuff. Plan was there. Yeah, total plan. No. Yeah, and that's fine. I had to roll with it. Putting all that behind, the stuff that's going on now, and I hate to say this, yeah, I've lived with it all my whole life. Like, it's not like I haven't seen this happen to me. Yeah, I literally a few weeks ago, I must say this, and I've had people come into my live streams, and someone came in the other week, a few weeks ago, came into my live stream and said, like, everyone's quite cool, everyone's just chatting, it's all fine. And he said, I'm gonna leave, I'm really sorry, and I hope you're not offended, but I'm gonna leave a dislike because you're not white. Now, you have to understand, it's not the first time I've heard that, and it won't be the last time I've heard that. And it kills me every single time. And to see what's happened, I can't put out enough words to say what's happened. Yeah. But I've had it happen to me before. Like, not to that extent. I had like a situation where I was attacked by a bunch of, so I'm Asian, like South Asian kind of thing, Pakistani, African. And I was attacked by a bunch of Pakistani kids. And the funniest thing happened. I reported it on the phone, told them my name. Yeah, didn't care. Told them I worked for like the government, like the council. The conversation changed to, oh, sir, sorry, oh, sir. They believed everything I said. And I remember that moment in the conversation where it went, what's your name and where do you work? And the shift, the tonal shift, it has to change. But there's so much to change. You can't even, like, I really appreciate all the people that are coming out, that are like platforming this and giving this a platform. No one's speaking to us. Yeah, they don't, like, I really, 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 truly am so offended, yeah, that we can't, because the thing is, if I did, you know what I'm doing? I'm paying myself as that for the rest of my life. I've had to deal with this inner struggle every second of every day. I do not, it's not like I don't stand with people, but you have to understand, yeah, I'm standing my whole goddamn life. Yeah. It's just the way I had to do it. So me, personally, I hate it, but I love that people are going out there in the US and protesting, and they're using their voice. And people like yourself that are bringing light to it and having this conversation, which people are afraid to have because of what it means, because of what you paint yourself to be. And I just hate it. But other than that, I'm fantastic. Like, I'm great.
There's no way to really, for me, it's in this whole time, like, I've been always in that belief of like, oh, well, I don't treat people that way, so therefore I don't have to worry about that. But I'm actually now starting to realize, and it's okay to be wrong about things and learn from things, and I'm realizing that I didn't even realize I had white privilege. And that is a real thing. I don't have to worry about people coming into my streams and disliking a video because I'm a different color. And it hurts me so much to even hear that story, because it's like, well, I don't treat people like that. So therefore I'm kind of in that zone of I'm oblivious to everything else. I'm like, oh, I don't, so nobody else does. And, you know, that's okay to think like that and learn from that. And that's what I'm trying to learn with. And I'm trying to roll with the punches as well and just go, what can I do to help? What can I do to create change? And I'm only a small little, you know, margin of the world. But I had people coming into my comments on a video that I left or a tweet that I left or something being like, you're not from America, this doesn't concern you. I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true. It happens all over the world. And if, you know, again, I'm learning, I can't understand exactly how it feels to go through this kind of stuff because it just doesn't happen to white people. And I've trying my hardest to kind of have conversations with people and be like, no, but I stand by you no matter what. It's only a small thing. I understand. And there's a lot more that I could be doing, but we're all trying to learn. To segue off to that into how you're doing, you know, well, both of you guys with those wrestling girls, it's like, I've seen your tweets and I've seen some of the stuff and you're always trying to highlight people of color and also, you know, whatever their kind of sexual orientation is, it shouldn't matter. But unfortunately, in the world we live in, it's more relevant than ever that it does matter, and it's awful. And I can't express the words that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to express them in a healthy way. But how have you been dealing with everything that I asked Fowl as well, with everything with COVID-19 and all of this that's happening now? It's
so many things, right?
Piling up, isn't it? It's just, how are you dealing with it, or on both of your behalf?
It's been hard. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, just before everything that was happening, and I hate to say before everything that was happening to Floyd, because this is something that's been going on for years, unfortunately. But before all of this, COVID hit us pretty hard. You know, my co-host, you know, lost people, and you know, I'm thanking God that I haven't lost anyone close. But it's been rough. And I literally we just have to take it day by day. And I'm glad that you're doing this roundtable, because honestly, creating content for us, it has like literally saved like just my sanity and just keeping me busy. And I have such an escapist probably anyway. So like, you know, and these sorts of things happen, I actually get more tunnel vision towards the show, which is so weird. And I like don't want to ever appear like, you know, tone deaf. Like, wait, you're creating more content. We're in the middle of all of this, but at this are people out. You know, I work, it's funny, I work at the Sun, the US leg. So I'm literally always the only New Yorker all the time, which is funny. And so I hear about this stuff all day long. So, you know, when I get home or when I go on Twitter, you know, to then go on my feed and then read about it, it's heavy, it's rough. And it's been so many tragedies even within the micro wrestling community, like the Hana tragedy, you know, Shad. Oh, you know, like when you even just start to think about all of the trauma that all of us is like trying to get through day to day. So I feel like, you know, I love using those wrestling girls as, you know, an escape for myself. And also people, you know, have been DMing us. Like, you know, I discovered your show during the quarantine. I binge it at, you know, a lot of frontline workers are like, I binge your show at work, you know, overnight and, you know, things like that. So I'm like, you know what, I feel like I'm going to keep creating content, you know, just to put some light out there. And, you know, I don't want to go too much into everything, but I do appreciate, you know, Josh, what you were saying, because, you know, a lot of people are getting attacked that aren't a person of color for speaking. And I feel like, you know, that's kind of messed up, because, and then we're all learning how to cope and how to deal with this and what language to use and all these sorts of things. And I love that you said that, you know, you're learning, you're trying to understand. I really appreciate that. You have no idea, because it's, you know, realistically, like, let's just change the subject. But I just want to make sure, because it's exhausting. It's been draining me personally. And like, I'm in New York, you know, I see it. Like I see, you know, neighborhoods burning down and things like that. And it's just a sad time. And, you know, we've been going through this for so long. So I'm glad that we are able to provide an escape for the world right now. Literally, like, we represent a lot of parts of the world.
I agree completely. Rob, same question to you before we move on to kind of our journeys with content. How have you been coping over these last 6 months?
What a roller coaster it's been, and I took a lot from everything that you guys just said right now. I feel your guys' pain, like the things that you guys have experienced in your life. And Josh, I'm with you. Like you're kind of like learning about your privilege. Like I get it, man. Like you're seeing it firsthand, and it's everything going on, like from the COVID. I think as creators, we can find the silver linings and things, and kind of use this downtime to put out the content and all that. But at the same time, like for my show personally, and this is not a plug, there'll be plugs later, don't worry. But we always kept it very like, yeah, very entertainment and all that kind of stuff. Never really got political and all that stuff. And just as things got more and more real, like you had to get away from that. You had to face it head on, and I appreciate you doing that. And my heart just goes out to anyone affected by the virus or racism or any. It's beyond me. Like Alistair Black did a live stream yesterday on Instagram, and he's on his treadmill just working out, and he's like, I can't get my head around this. He's like, it's skin color. He's like, it's skin color. Like really, like, and he's so frustrated, and like, I just don't know why the world is still like this. It breaks my heart, and I think all we can do is just use our platforms like you are right now, Josh, to have a conversation, to do good. Josh, like for example, that video you put out when the Australian wildfires happened, like my heart went out to you, man. You're like, my country is burning, my country, like the tears are coming down your eyes, like or down your face. I was just like, you did it. And what did you do? You put on a live stream, you raised like nearly $1,000 for the cause. And that's what we got to do. And I know a lot of us have used our platform to raise money for like Connor's cure or whatever it may be. And I think it's important that we have these conversations, and it's good we have the content for the entertainment value, but I'm starting to also learn, like, I got to say something, so it's crazy. It's very, hopefully we can learn from all this.
Yeah,
can I just quickly say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Just like how silly it is, and I'm so sorry you had to experience that, Fowl. How dumb it is to say I'm gonna dislike this because you're not white. Like, how dumb is
why
that?
Announce
like,
that?
seriously.
Like, why is that necessary to tell you that?
Like, you know what the funniest thing was about the whole thing is it happens and I start laughing because I laughed because it was moderated in my chat, so no one else saw it initially, and I was like, that's pretty funny, and I started laughing because that's my response now, because it is ridiculous, isn't it? I was a bit like, that's a bit
you
of
liked my content, but you're not gonna like it though, because like it's just so silly.
And then he didn't even give a thumbs down. I think he gave a thumbs up because everyone started. Oh, anyway, yeah, it was a whole thing. But
I'm sorry.
It is so funny. Like every time it happens, I just go, okay, like cool. I'm just gonna move on to the next person. But yeah. But no, thank you.
It is crazy. We'll move on to content, but I'll just kind of round up this kind of little subject is that I appreciate what you said to me in the fact that I'm learning, because it's not something that I've been, I'm 24. I haven't been dealing with this for 24 years personally. So I don't know what the right things to say are or what the right thing to do is exactly. I'm just kind of going with it and going with my heart and going, well, this isn't right. I wouldn't treat this person this way. So therefore, on a majority scale, the police who are meant to protect us and stuff like that shouldn't be treating people this way. Point blank. That's how I see it. So I'll just kind of round up that, and I'll continue to try and do what I can in the small little platform that I have to just say what I feel is necessary and say what I feel is right, because at the end of the day, my Twitter is just me. I'm just me as a person, and it's just my opinion. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. Also, I want to wish everybody a happy Pride Month to all of the people in the community, because it should be a time. I know the timing's awful, but we should be celebrating all different kinds of race and sexual orientation, gender, everything. We should just be celebrating that. I think 12 months a year, but it is Pride Month, so happy Pride Month to everyone that is celebrating. Now, let's move on to some content here. I know that sounds like a weird segue, but there's no real way to segue off of that, so just kind of tackle it head first. Let's segue off into some content here, because we all make content. We all make great content. It's so cool to see everyone, from the outside looking in and just going, they're killing it. They're killing it. They're killing it. What are they doing? What are they doing? It's just like, there's so many of us in the community, and we seem to be fairly all close to one another. Even if we're not talking on a daily basis, we're all kind of supporting one another, and we're all kind of trying to help each other out in times like this as well, when we're getting together with roundtables and me just putting out a tweet and everyone being like, yeah, I'd love to come on. And it's like, how do I choose from all of these people to just 3 or 4? Because it's incredibly hard, but it is really nice to see that everyone's willing to support one another, help each other out, and just talk about what they love. Because at the end of the day, what we all bond over at the end of the day is wrestling. We all love wrestling. Whatever wrestling we watch, wrestling is wrestling. So it all brings us together. So I think that's really a beautiful thing. I really do think it is. So content-wise, we'll go in this order. Fowl, you are probably the most versatile person when it comes to content. You'll make any kind of content there is to kind of keep yourself sane, I would say. Fowl's laughing because he never puts himself over, but I will. Fowl, you like I said at the beginning, you're kind of the first person that kind of took note of me and was like, hey, I think this guy's okay. Like, let's chat. And I think our first conversation, knowing you, felt probably lasted about 6 or 7 hours. It's usually how long our conversations go on Skype. Just take me through this last however long you've been doing content now, and just kind of take me through a small snippet, of course, of your journey to where you are now, because you've done a lot.
Cool. So, 2016, we begin. Well, we'll start at 2016 and I'll zip along, yeah. But 2016, Fowl was born, had an idea to do this stuff. I literally max powered my name. Like, I went onto a website, random generated, wanted original in there, Fowl, because birds, I thought. And then, yeah, so Fowl Original was born, found out the website existed, took all the stuff, all the social media and stuff. And then I didn't really know what I was doing. So I started off doing wrestling content on YouTube. So it was Fowl Original Wrestling. And then the story I always tell, and it always sounds really impressive, but it's really not. Yeah. First video I did, gets like 20 views, whatever. Second video I do gets 20,000 views in like 12 hours. And I'm like, maybe I know what I'm doing. Maybe, possibly, but I didn't. I was coming towards the end of a relationship, and it was one of those, like, it's me or the dog situation, and I picked the dog. So I took myself out, and that was the beginning. And from that point onwards, I've been kind of, just making loads of random stuff. So I started off on Periscope, live streaming. I wanted to get 1 million likes on Periscope, which I did. And then I was like, well, I'm done with this stuff. And then I just kind of hopped around a few of the things. Periscope was great because I love to talk. 6-hour stream. No problem for me. And it was back when no one was doing it. So I learned how to do some of the live streaming stuff that I do now there. I was one of the first people that were just popping stuff up on Periscope, and people were like, how are you doing that? And I was like, magic. And then I left wrestling basically to go off, and I talk about like standing with people. At the end of 2016, I did a show called 7 Minutes in Hell, where I basically spoke about anything that was really, really hurting me. And I had like an animated face, so you couldn't see it was me. So I figured I could say whatever I wanted. I had an episode where I talked about brown privilege, because people didn't really seem to understand that there was a privilege within the community. And I spoke about Donald Trump and all these kind of things. But who cares when you're on YouTube and you're just like a cartoon face? Anyway, while that's all going on, I was rebuilding my life, got myself a new full-time job, like a real 9-to-5 job, carried on Fowl in the background though. And then just carried on doing it. And then fast forward to end of 2018, be me, going around the internet, nuisance, absolute nuisance. Yeah. Going around Twitter, an absolute nuisance, just bothering everyone for about 2-3 months until January come round, and I hit 1,000 subscribers during a roundtable with Wilf, Omega Luke, and Conrad from Everything Pro Wrestling. It was freaking magical. Like, I never had that kind of feeling of community before with the content that I was doing, especially on YouTube. And anyway, then obviously stuff happened with a particular network. Well, a few actually, but that particular network happened. We'll leave it at that. And then I took a little bit of my journey into the wilderness, and I went around more like Afro Samurai than like Kane from Kung Fu, and then just walked around for a bit, and then came back, wanted to come back to that particular network, but it didn't happen. So then I just went off and did random stuff, and now I'm starting a radio kind of network now, which I'm in the middle of like putting off doing the episode run. I had to do this because I thought, why not? But it's like a breakfast show. I don't even know why. And yeah, like the journey. Now I've got a Patreon. I was doing video edits, and it's like basically I really like wrestling and making stuff, and there's never really been a place for me to do that before. Like people speak about how maybe they were born in like the wrong century. Yeah, but like maybe if I had like a longer lifespan, like I'd take the longer lifespan. Like I don't want to be born in a different century, but it'd been really cool if when I was a kid I could do like what you were doing, and that's why I respect what you do so much, because like that's taking the ball from the horns. So that's just doing it. That's just like I have this technology. What can I do with it? And like even this virtual background that you guys are like, I love this. I could never dream of doing this when I was a kid. Yeah, I would have drawn a picture and put it on the wall. Yeah, and like had a weird MySpace angle to make sure you guys couldn't see it. This is insanity. But with all that, I've been speaking to like wrestling brands and stuff. Twitter has been whatever, and I've had a really, really fun time over the past year, and I figured it was time to start really challenging myself. Yeah. So that's what Radio Fowl is all about. And welcome to my TED Talk. Thank you very much.
It's cool to see you, and just kind of I just feel like you're one of those people that just kind of I think we're similar in this way, Fowl. We just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And if it doesn't stick, then we move on to the next thing. I've always kind of had that philosophy, because really, what have we got to lose at the end of the day? Like, we see what happens, see what doesn't, what works for people, what works for you, and just whatever it happens. So for anyone that doesn't know, me and Fowl were on a network together, one Brainbuster Radio, the I mean the infamous Brainbuster Radio. Yeah, so that's how we met before. We met before that. We met in the January, Fowl, and then Brainbuster launched in like March.
But we were in another network before that.
Oh yeah, we won't talk about that network.
We won't talk about that one.
So great. But that's how we kind of, over the months leading into Brainbuster, that's how we became a lot closer. But the same story with me as with Fowls on a roundtable with Wilf and a few other people. I can't even remember off the top of my head, to be honest. And then it just kind of started happening for me, and then Brainbuster happened, and then I just slowly gained more confidence and was like, I could probably do this kind of on my own, and I'm pretty sure I could do what I need to do. But that's how me and Fowl met, for anyone that doesn't know our background. Now, let's move on to those wrestling girls, because the reason I'm so excited when I say that out loud is because the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months I've come across your show, and I've seen you before in just like Twitter, and I'm like, what is this show about? What is this? I want to check it out, just out of pure curiosity, nothing else, just pure curiosity. Your Spotlight series and stuff, I've noticed, I've been binging that over the last like week or something like that, just going through and just binging these Spotlight series, because I don't know how to describe it. It's just different from what anyone else is doing. There's a different vibe to the show, and that's what I kind of like about those wrestling girls. But how did it all start for you guys? Because you guys have just kind of low-key kind of blown up the last few months, I've noticed, just from an outside, just being like, you guys are crushing it, by the way.
Thank you. And it's still so weird to hear people say that, because believe it or not, I'm extremely shy. So even hearing people talk about it's like, thank you very, very much. And I actually been a fan of yours even prior to that, to January. So I was really excited when we finally, like, our mutuals. Isn't that weird how Twitter just like your mutuals bring people together and you don't even realize it? But anyway, so Krista and I both work in like media, and we like worked for a couple different companies together, and every time we would get together, like, we would talk about was wrestling. The end of 2017 and 2018, and the women were obviously during this time like killing it, and it was just very inspiring to me personally, because growing up in the Attitude Era, and like what women were not looked at as athletes, wrestlers. So for us, it was just like, wow, like the women are being put on the same platform as the men. Like, I'm looking at the Horseman as like larger than life person like Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I was just so inspired by that. And then we were like, we should start a blog or something. And I had got into like wrestling podcasts myself. Like I'm a huge fan of like the Conrad Thompson podcast and like how he and I was able to binge shows when I discovered them because they're all evergreen. They're just kind of like spotlights on different wrestlers and stuff like that. So I was just like, I wish that there was a podcast that covered the women the way that he covers things. Yeah. So I was like, we should do a podcast. So then long story short, like you said, throwing the wall, like we kept waiting for the perfect time, and it was just like, there is no perfect time, like let's just do it. And if you watch our first episode, which is an evolution recap, it's horrible. It's like in a break room in like a building that my co-host was working out of, and like we were exhausted because we were generation. So it was just like, it was horrible. But if we didn't just start, you know, like we would have never started. And then we just kept going. And it's when you're like at the lowest low, Fowl, like I can relate to the breakup thing because I got back into wrestling in 2017. I just went through like a breakup with someone for like 5.5 years, and I was like lost, and I was just like, okay, so I like just poured myself into wrestling. And then the podcast was able to kind of like really, you know, I just stayed with it because I enjoy it. So I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. And then with wrestling Twitter, like so many people would like DM us and be like, you know, I got on that don't have wrestling fans or friends like wrestling, or they live in the middle of nowhere and, you know, they don't have a peer, and they go on Twitter to interact with us and live tweet with us. So, you know, we feel like we have a responsibility to sort of, you know, engage them. And then, you know, our platform is all about representing, you know, the women and giving them a platform and giving them a voice. So we, you know, tend to collaborate with female during podcasts and be that platform, you know, for voices that aren't in this space.
Yeah, it's cool to see. First and foremost, it's just I see the tweets that you guys put out or whatever it may be, the little videos that you guys put out, and I'm just like smiling. And that's, I think, it was important in, you know, social media world can be pretty gross sometimes. It can be pretty dark when it wants to be. And if you let it kind of get to you, it can kind of tear you apart. So it's just nice to see accounts that want to do that. You guys among many others that do so. And highlighting females in a world that's been, up until the last few years, predominantly male-dominated in every aspect, fandom, on screen, off screen, it's been male-dominated. So just to see that, for anyone that, you know, isn't familiar of my kind of stuff, or I've always been a fan of the women and I've always wanted more. They've always been my favorite part of wrestling. It's just, I'm not sure why. But I think throughout that time, you know, growing up, I tipped into wrestling just after the Attitude Era, about 2001. So just as it was ending. And to see what it is then to now is night and day different. So it's crazy to see. Sometimes I kind of look back, and because we're just going with the motions of wrestling, it's just like, oh, women are in the main event, and then you kind of just go, wait a minute, women are in the main event.
Holy shit.
Yeah, holy shit, women are in the main event.
It happens to me all the time.
Because like, sometimes it's just going through it, and you're just like, oh, this is just another match. I kind of like that it's got to that point, though, where it's taken away, just like, you know, that it's not just for, oh, you know, the women are main eventing here just because, like, we want them and then never again. Like, they're doing it on a consistent basis, and it's just become the norm. And I kind of like that. Yeah. I'm kind of like that the first ever is going away, because it's cool to have the first ever. Of course, like the first ever Women's Royal Rumble and Hell in a Cell and whatever it may be. But just to see the first ever go away, and it's just like, no, this is just the Royal Rumble match. This is just, we get this every year now. And it's like, this is what I want. I want it to be the norm for this kind of stuff just to happen. So to see you guys just spotlighting, you know, whether it be Ember Moon or Natalia, you just dropped an episode on, which, by the way, I agree. I watch Total Divas like crazy. So I'm like, Natty and Ronda's friendship was like my favorite thing of the last season. Was it the last season? Season before? No, the last season Ronda was on. One of them. And just seeing that friendship, and, you know, I'm an OG Total Divas fan. I remember that first episode when Eva Marie dyed her hair red and everyone got mad, and I remember that.
Steph got real mad. Steph got real mad. I remember how mad she got. And I was like, is this work? I'm sorry.
She was like, this bee
But-
dyeing her hair red. And I was like, you tell her, Stephanie. And then I was like, oh no. JoJo was there, just her little sidekick. I remember Total Divas. I've watched every damn episode of that show. So, and proudly, I'll proudly watch that show. I have no shame.
First season was amazing. Yeah,
Oh, it was
Eva
fire.
Marie's boyfriend, hilarity, absolute hilarity. I remember like that was why I thought it was a
Yeah.
work. Like I remember like when I first watched it, I was like, I believe everything else, but I don't believe this. I don't believe it. And I was like, the film crew must have been like, yes, we've scored gold. This is fantastic. Keep drinking. Like,
Oh man. It's my
beautiful.
favorite Total
So
Divas
much.
moment ever is when Natty thought she was high off eating the cookie or the brownie with weed in it, and she drove her car into the
my
dumpster. I was like,
God.
oh, Natty. Like, what are you doing? Because Natty just makes me go like,
Or
just
when
face
she-
palm.
Down Penny. Yes.
Natty is just, man, Natty's crazy. I love Natty, I really do, especially on that show. But shifting gears here, Rob, you interview, like, I see your interviews and I'm just like, this man is just so good because he's just so lucky with all of his interviews, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, get me on this train. I want to get on this train. Like, you're just driving away from us and you're like, look at me over here. And you are constantly just crushing it and killing it, and I see you pop in and stuff like that. But how did it all start for you? Because out of everybody here, you're probably the journey I know, honestly, the least about.
Yeah. So first of all, not true. You're more right about me being lucky than being so good. Like I have a million questions. Like as soon as we're done with this or another time, like I have a million questions to ask you guys about video and streaming and production and ideas and all that. So I take a lot from you guys. So it is a learning process. Real quick before I get to the little origin story here, not to go too into detail, but it's funny how all of us are kind of saying like, oh, you know, we came out of a bad relationship or this relationship ended and we kind of reached into our thing. You know, without going into too much detail, 10-year relationship, 6 days before Christmas this year, you know, marriage, all that kind of stuff. It ended the hard way. I found out the hard way that it was ending. And yeah, it's been really tough, really, really tough. And I'll leave it at that. And I just didn't see it coming. And I think, and again, that pales in comparison to anything going on in the world today. That's just personal stuff. But didn't see it coming. And, you know, the podcast kind of slowed down because I wasn't going to put out podcasts or do stuff like that. And everyone was just like, bro, like, you know, when are we going to review this? Or like, when are we doing this interview? And I'm like, what? And like, the podcast. And they kind of picked me up and we did it. And I didn't think it would be a thing. Like, I didn't even have all my stuff. I had my gear. I had a little portable like room mic. And I did some episodes in my car. And it just kept going. Like I picked up the momentum and everyone just had my back and it was really cool. And just having you guys as the community too, like, you know, there's so much negative on social media. We addressed that a little earlier, but like, it's pretty cool. Like, you know, Josh, you're in Australia, man. And, you know, it's just like cool talking to you guys and just having you guys as this creative community and how passionate we are about wrestling or whatever it may or may not be. It's super cool. So I do appreciate that. And I get what you guys are saying. So it's been, I knew this was going to be a weird year. It was weird for me since December, but I knew it'd be really weird. And I appreciate you. Like we do what we can. And I appreciate you guys having me on. And I appreciate just this community and all this content. But now for the shameless promo. Basically rewinding a little bit, I've been in bands pretty much since I was 16. So we'd always been on like the college radio and podcasts and all that stuff growing up in all different bands. And I'm a drummer. Like put me behind the drums, I can do anything. And I'm not like tooting my own horn, but like beep beep. But like we like behind the drums, I'm very confident. I've been doing it my whole life. And if I'm in front of a microphone, like that's not for me. I'm not about that at all. But we've been on so many podcasts and stuff. I want to do like a website. I want to do like top 25 retro games of all time. I want to do wrestling reviews and all this stuff. And I started making a website and that was a lot of work. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know nothing about this and the navigation, all this stuff. And we just been on so many like podcasts with bands and stuff over the year. I'm like, what if I just like had a microphone and did a podcast and all that? And I asked my friends at the time, and I have the best friends in the world, the boys on the podcast. They're amazing. My guys. We have amazing guests and all this, and it really turned into something. But I asked them, I was like, should I like do this podcast? Cause like I'm a drummer. Don't give me a microphone. Keep me away from the mic. And you know, still I learned from you guys. Like I still feel like it's a learning process. But everyone's like, yeah, do it. And it turned into this thing. Like it's a legit thing. Like even when I was going through some hard stuff, people are like, are we doing the show? And you know, like even when there's like no sports right now, people are like, oh, like let's do something about like the NFL draft, because it's it was a pop culture show, but I would have to say it's become like 60 to 75% wrestling, which is awesome because I met you guys and I've got to do some good interviews, and it's really turned into something where I can be creative. I can involve my friends, my family. I can help people. I'm having some local businesses on soon. We were doing a lot with first responders earlier with this COVID thing. So we're using that platform for good. Our 100th episode, we had a big fundraiser for Connor's Cure. And then as far as like the names we get on, it's all about this. It really is luck because you'll get a million no's. You will get a million no's and you'll never know who will say yes. You just got to keep plugging away. You got to keep trying. I find that like going to a lot of these like conventions, wrestling conventions, horror cons, whatever they are. For example, my goal last year was to get, I had CVV on, Chris Van Vliet. First name drop. There's gonna be a lot of name drops. I apologize. And you guys should have him on. He's if you haven't already, he's amazing. And his quote is, what is it? Vague goals yield vague results, or something along those lines. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna set goals, 2 goals for myself. This was 2019. I want to interview a WWE contracted superstar and Santa Claus come Christmas time or whatever. So those were my goals. Obviously it was, getting the superstar. And because WWE, it's very hard to get interviews. Like even if you got their PR people, sometimes I got to run it through, I'm not saying Vince, but whoever it is, that got to, do it. And it's tricky. It's very, very tricky. I've asked WWE guys, well, they don't have time or they're under contract. So real quick. And just to give some people some hope that keep plugging away. I went to a horror con of all places. Kurt Angle was one of the featured guests. I went up to his table. Hi, Mr. Angle, Rob Cruther from the Bob Culture podcast and the popbreak.com, which I did the interview from. So the podcast did allow me to become a writer as well, which is really, really cool how things kind of keep going. Yep. Mr. Angle, Rob Cruther from the popbreak.com. Do you have a few minutes for an interview? I'm expecting, I'm sorry, I'm under contract. I don't do interviews. He goes, well, how long of an interview? Inside my head, I was like jumping up and down. I'm just like, don't say the wrong thing. Don't say the wrong thing. I'm just like, 2 minutes, Mr. Angle, 2 minutes. He's like, sure. His guy has me come behind the table. I give him a microphone. I'm nervous as can be, but I'm hyped. Like you can hear it. I'm hyped. It was like, all right. So Kurt couldn't have been, or Mr. Angle, I should say, couldn't have been any nicer. He had me come behind the table. I got a good 3-4 minute interview with him. He said the nicest things. This was just after he retired. And something else, since we're talking about content, I do want to put this out here. I'm big on journalistic integrity. I like to keep it real. I don't like to spin stuff. And what he had said in the interview, I asked him like, you're kind of in a different position now. Like, what's it like being a producer in WWE as opposed to, in the ring? And he goes, right now it's hard for me to watch. Like, I miss being in there, yada, yada. So like 10 different sites, but it's hard for Kurt Angle to watch WWE. And I'm just like, I felt like, not that I did it, but I was just like I just wanted to like reach out to him and be like in my piece, it didn't say anything like that. It was all positive. And, we had this great intro and, about the 3 eyes and his legendary career. So just like to journalists and people doing this stuff, like journalistic integrity is super important, and don't spin stuff for clicks. Don't make these headlines, like keep it real. And you have my respect. And for people trying to get these guests, just keep plugging away. You never know who's going to say yes. And also, I'm wearing my Casey Navarro shirt, up and comer. Support the indie guys. We love our indie friends.
Yes, I agree completely. It's cool because again, all of you guys that just spoke, it's like we all love wrestling. We're all making content. We're all doing our own things and just kind of, in our own little areas that we do, whether it's interviews, whether it's, spotlighting the women, or whether it's spotlighting something else, or whether it's streaming, or whatever we're doing. And there's so much stuff that people do within the world of creating content, because the world is literally your oyster. You can do whatever you feel is right for you. And, and also we've been talking about the fact that through all these times, wrestling and content creating is a massive escape. Just from whatever is going on, it's a distraction. We turn on Raw, or we turn on SmackDown, and it's 2 or 3 hours out of the week, or whether we're watching whatever we're watching. It's just a distraction, and you just kind of get lost in that world. It makes you kind of feel like a child again watching wrestling, because I feel like that's sometimes the best part about wrestling, is that stuff that takes you away from whatever you're doing. You just feel like you're 10 years old going, I don't necessarily care about the ins and outs of what's going on, behind the scenes of wrestling. You just watching what's on your television screen. And that's how I try to approach wrestling. I think that's why a lot of people are like, how can you watch WWE and be so happy all the time? It's like, well, I just watch it for whatever's on my screen. I don't really try and read dirt sheets. I'm not really, I see it. I'm on the internet. Of course I'm going to see it. I'd be oblivious not to see it. But, I just try to focus on what's happening and being like, I'm not worried about like what this person, they can't win this match because in 3 weeks they're going to do this in some country, or they can't do this because they're scheduled for a feud with this person. Like, I just watch wrestling to watch wrestling. That's how I enjoy wrestling. And that's why I think I still enjoy wrestling and have never taken a break away from wrestling or anything like that. But wrestling as an escape. We'll go around the room again. Fowl, through all of this, you're still making content, yes, but again, we're wrestling fans at the heart of this. So how important is wrestling as an escape from whatever is going on in your life to you? And what does that mean to you, really?
So Fowl, the whole journey of Fowl, like, and especially the last year or so, like, I speak about this quite a lot. Like, it was my escape. Every single day I came home, like Rocket Man style, like literally go to work, finish work, think about content creation all day at work. Then second finish work, make content on bus home. Then once home, go upstairs to make more content. Don't worry about food. Don't worry about that. And then at some point make some food. But it's wrestling of all the things. And like talking about like, I throw myself into wrestling sometimes. And loads of different fandoms, but wrestling probably more so because it requires you to kind of like, you don't tend to watch a short wrestling show. No one really watches like a 45-minute show. They'll stack it up. They'll watch 2 in a row. Like you kind of, you strap yourself in, you put on your seatbelt and you just sit there and watch it. And you sit there and watch it for however long it is. Is it WrestleMania? Is it 12 hours? Cool. That's fine. Yeah. I don't need my bladder no more. That's fine. Like, especially the way I do it. It's like, all of these things and wrestling and the content creation more so has been a total escape for me. Like, I always say, like, when I'm live streaming, the world melts away. Like, it purely melts away. Like, it's a really hard thing to kind of explain, but whatever the hell's going on outside, like, I live in a shared house. So at any point, things are just generally happening around me. Like, that's not a bad thing. But when I'm in it, like I'm in it. When I'm doing a 6-hour edit, I don't talk to no one. I might come downstairs and see someone. I'll be like, I'm in edit mode. I need to go upstairs. And it's great. Like, and it really, in all of this, the first 2 weeks when all of this hit the current climate, I stopped kind of, like, people didn't really notice, but I stopped making as much. And then I took like a week or so off to figure out what I was doing. And then I was like, well, I better do a weekly show. And that gave me structure. And like every week, I'd look forward to that, like, even during this time, to the point where I knew what was happening on a Wednesday because I'm doing my show. I know what's happening on a Sunday because wrestling's coming. Like, it's really, really provided structure. And yes, pure escapism, creation and consumption. But during this time, I felt really guilty consuming content because I'm like as Patricia spoke about earlier on, feel responsibility sometimes to kind of go, well, people are like, hey, you can do a live stream. No, because I don't feel like it. Actually, no, I'd like to do it, and I'd like to, if there's only one person watching my stream, it's fine with me. I'm entertaining them. Yeah, and like, it's been pure escapism, and it's great. Like, there's nothing like wrestling. You spoke about it, Josh. It takes you back. It takes me back to such happier times. Like, every single day, even if the product is terrible and trash, I'll be like, yeah, but remember Naked Midian? And like, that's all I'll say to myself. It
takes you back to being like on the couch with whoever you're watching wrestling with at 8-9 years old, and just not really, you don't realize it at the time, but not having a care in the world. Like, the worst care in the world is, I've got to get up for school tomorrow. That's it. That's all you got to do. And now we have to live in times when you got to be an adult. Being an adult is awful. For any child listening to this, being an adult is like the worst thing in the world, honestly. Yeah, and I think wrestling as, taking you back and having different times just to feel like you, and being an adult and all that is just awful and just it's a massive trap. So any children listening at the moment, not that you should probably be listening to my stuff, I swear a lot, but it's don't be an adult. Don't do it. It sucks. It's awful. You got to pay bills and you got to worry about what you're going to have for dinner. And it's like the worst thing in the world to worry about what you're going to have for dinner. It's like, what should I actually eat tonight? Because I'm not sure. You just had your mum do it or your dad do it for you. It was so much better. It was just so much better. You just watch wrestling and go to school. What a time to be alive. But I think with what you're saying, Fowl, is like consuming content, creating content, you know, I find three things are my biggest escape. Wrestling, first and foremost. Music. I think music is very important because you can just kind of zone out and just listen to music. And video games is another thing that I can just kind of you have to focus your energy on something else because you're physically doing it. So therefore you have to, your mind has to go to there and it can stop thinking about whatever's going on in your life. And that's okay to do. I personally think it's okay to provide yourself with distractions because, yes, it's important to focus some energy on what's going on in the world, whether it is COVID stuff, whether it's what's going on at the moment, whatever. Personally, yes, you should focus some of your attention on that, but it's okay to step back and it's okay to just not think about it for a little while because you'll drive yourself crazy. You really will. Like, it's very exhausting to do that to your body, to your mind, and to the people around you, because people around you will notice that you're focusing all your energy on one thing instead of dividing your energy onto yourself and other people. Don't forget the world surrounding you as the bigger world going on as well. But for those wrestling girls, it'd be so easy to fall into the trap. I feel like with podcasting or with wrestling or anything really, analyzing something can take away the fun of it. Sometimes, and you're just like, oh, I'm just watching this because I have to, and I'm watching this because I'm analyzing, and I've got an episode coming up on Mickey James or whatever it may be, and you're like, I've got to focus and just watch and taking away that fun appeal. How do you approach when you got a spotlight coming up or whatever you're doing, and not taking away the fun of just being a fan of wrestling instead of and just analyzing it? How do you approach that?
That's a good question. And I think that's what's good about covering the women. Cause like I was like, I'm gonna do a podcast or a side project if I'm not really passionate about it. And there's not a lot of content about the women that we cover. So that's what's good about it. It's like WWE's not gonna tell Talia every moment in the last 12 years deem it necessary. So I get to look back on the things. I would feel we had to get into more different promotion for our podcast.
Yep.
But then that's when it felt like, okay, now I'm just watching this just to analyze it, and I'm not really grabbing me.
Yeah.
So I try to, and then with the network, it's good because you have a mix between like documentaries, you have Total Divas, and then it's like something reminds you of a match, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go watch it. Or it's Money in the Bank season, and I'm ranking Money in the Bank ladder matches. Now I gotta watch all the Money in the Bank ladder matches. So like, I think for me, and I also write for a few websites, I think for me, making sure that I only cover things that I personally am interested in helps a lot.
Yeah. No, yeah. I definitely understand that, because also when you're watching stuff on the network, it's like on demand and stuff like that as well. So you're just seeking out what you want to watch instead of being told what to watch, basically. Sorry to interrupt, by the way.
Yeah. No worries. And I think if we did recaps, I think I would feel more like how you're feeling, because sometimes the weekly shows are not always that good, and it's not always easy for you to then be like, okay, welcome to where we're recapping the most boring Raw ever. You know what I mean? So I think that helps us a lot.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. It's just like, you never want to... My biggest fear when I started this nearly 2 years ago, when I started doing wrestling podcasts, is like, I don't want to ever take away... I love wrestling so much, and I'm like, if I do this every single week, and I'm just watching it with that in mind, that I'm going to talk about this at some stage, is it going to take my love away for wrestling? Because I've talked to so many people within this community that have all taken breaks with wrestling. In the near 20 years that I've been watching wrestling, I've never once taken a step back from wrestling. I've just always loved it. And that everyone has the same reaction, like, whoa, really? And I'm like, yeah, I've never taken a step back. So everyone's like, just wait, it'll probably happen at some stage. And I'm like, okay, like it's getting when is this gonna happen? I'm like in my 20s now, and I'm still loving it as much, if not more, than I ever have. So I think that was the biggest thing of like, if you start creating content, and this is gonna happen to some people, this is just my experience, is that it can take away that love of something. If you start talking about it all the time, it can take away that love of something very fast. And I just think it's important to, like you said, just seek out the stuff that you want to cover, and make sure that you enjoy it enough to want to speak about it on a pretty frequent basis. I know you're dropping episodes every couple of weeks, but that's still pretty frequent. That's in your brain. That's kind of going like, hey, we got to talk about this person. So covering, for your example, like you're covering the women, you're interested in that. And there's so much, like you said, on the network with Total Divas and Total Bellas and all the documentaries like the 24s and just everything that there is to cover. There's so much variety, I guess would be the word, just within that spectrum of going, okay, we're going to focus on the women, but it's not just going to be like, we're going to focus on what the women did on Raw. No, we're going to focus on what their whole career did. We're going to focus on the episodes of Total Divas that they've been on, or pay-per-views like Evolution, or whatever it may be. I think that's really cool that you've just kind of tapped into that world and making sure you still love it at the end of the day, because there's no point in you talking about something that you don't love. And you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know what a year brings. And you might be like, I don't know if this is for me anymore. And I think that's important for all of us, is to go, I'm not going to talk about something and be a disservice to myself if I'm not enjoying it. There's no point in doing that. So focus your attention on something else maybe, or whatever it may be. Rob, for you, keeping yourself, you talked about all of this stuff that you've kind of gone through, and wrestling is an escape. Like I keep saying, think that I'm going to keep hammering that home. But for you, how do you find personally wrestling and content creating is a distraction for you? How do you approach things, like not getting stale with things and still keeping your interest? Because I know you do other things on through your website and stuff like that as well. But how do you find wrestling being a distraction?
That's a great question. I think especially this year, like you guys were kind of talking about it getting stale and stuff. And it definitely didn't get stale, but I definitely got to a point where I was a little wrestled out, maybe is the term. Going to a lot of indie shows, and now I miss it like crazy. And I still enjoyed it. Especially now, like things are kind of weird now. Not to say I'm wrestled out now, but it's a little bit, obviously with everything going on in the world, it's a little trickier to watch. Johnny Gargano is a heel, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. That's a conversation for a different day. He was the rebel heart and soul of that show, but we'll leave it at that. I feel like everyone's a heel on that show, but different conversation. I think, as I've learned, we have our ups and downs, and I think with wrestling, especially this year, and more so the community and you guys, as I said, it was there. You guys were there as a distraction. More so, I was able to more name drops incoming, but I was able to kind of concentrate on the content creation and getting these bigger interviews and. Even though like things weren't fantastic in personal life, and my situation, whatever may or may not be, I was able to get an interview with Rusev, and that was cool through the website that I work for, and it was pretty cool when I picked up the phone, because there was a little bit of a miscommunication, and I almost didn't pick it up, and I pick up my phone, and he goes, I can't do the accent, and I won't try, but he's like, Rob. And I'm like, yeah, I almost sounded professional, but I wasn't sure if it would be him or not, because like the timing was it was like a whole thing, and he was fantastic. But just picking up my phone with everything I'm going through, and picking up my phone and just hearing, Rob, it's Rusev. To me, I was just like, what is my life? So like that was really, really cool. And I always try to get like my friends involved too. I was late to the game, like with wrestling and stuff. My best friend, since I was 4 years old, we've been best friends, and he was always into it. And I was like, no, it's fake. No, it's fake. I know I was that guy. But like I'd always play with the action figures and the video games and stuff. And it wasn't until I was in college, I saw Mysterio flying around. I was like, okay. And from there, it was everything from just the show itself to the beards, the hairstyles, the music, the production, just everything about it, the theater to the pageantry. all that kind of stuff sucked me in, and I have been able to bond with my friends over it. I have a really good relationship with my father-in-law. He gave me these titles, and he used to go to signings and stuff with his father-in-law. So it's really crazy how it comes full circle. And as far as the content creation, I'm putting in the work, and I just can't believe. Not even just like oh, I got to talk to these big names, and again, I'm all about the shameless promo, you know this, but just helping these indie talents that are super appreciative, especially now when it's just like all came to a standstill and they miss it.
Yeah.
And I know like bodies are getting calcified, and it's just like, you know, it's just gonna be that much harder when they get back. I also think it's gonna be that much better when they walk through the ropes for the first time, that bell rings and the crowd's going nuts and everything's back to normal. It's gonna be that much sweeter.
Yeah.
But I just think they're super appreciative. And you know, Casey, as I mentioned, I'm wearing his shirt. I always try to support them. If I have them on the show, I always try to get them an 8x10 and all that kind of stuff. So it's super important to help the indie wrestlers right now. And just I'm super thankful for my friends, my guys on the show, the co-hosts, and super thankful for you guys and that Twitter wrestling community where we could just kind of have that distraction and at the same time be very real.
Yeah. Like this conversation, I appreciate you guys all being open and honest about whatever experiences and journeys and whatever it may be that have got you to this conversation right now. It's much appreciated. We're gearing up for Raw soon, so we're going to kind of wind this down, but just for anyone that, you know, is looking to maybe be like, maybe I should start a podcast or maybe I should do this, and you're kind of hearing whoever voices within the community and be like, oh man, I remember listening to other people's podcasts when I was first starting and being like, oh my God, I'm never going to get to that level. Like, you're never going to get there. And you're like, how do I get to that? Just for anyone that's kind of maybe looking at one of us or maybe looking at myself and going, how do I get to where these people are? I started my podcast with a Rock Band Guitar Hero microphone. That's how I started this podcast. I had a USB Rock Band microphone. I plugged it into my computer. I loaded up Audacity and I just talked. My first episode is pure ass. It's the worst thing in the world. Like, it's like I'm very quiet and I take really long pauses between each word, and it's so bad. But it's just, anyone can do this, I feel. I feel like if you have the passion for whatever it is you want to speak about, you can start a podcast, or you can start YouTube channel, or you can start Twitch streaming, whatever it may be. Just because you don't feel like you have the right equipment or you don't have the right, you know, as long as your mind's set to it, I feel like you can do it. I mean, 2 years ago when I started this, I did not think I'd be able to talk to people all over the world. There's not many really other Australians that I get to talk to on a daily basis for wrestling. Like, I live in a fairly small town just outside of Adelaide, and I'm like, I don't have a lot of people within my community that I just get to talk wrestling with. So it's nice to be able to load up Twitter or a Skype conversation like we're doing right now and just talk about content or talk about wrestling or really whatever, and actually learning about these people outside of wrestling. You know, I've created friends through Twitter, which I never thought would be a thing. I'm like, I have people that live in the States or live in the UK that I'm like, they're my friends. And it's so bizarre to me that I'm just like, I'm just some dumb kid that lives in Adelaide of all places in Australia. Like, no one knows where Adelaide is. No one knows what Adelaide is. They just, that's the place that Rhea Ripley's from. Yeah, that's where I am. It's like, that's how I kind of see it. And it's so crazy to me that we're able to have this conversation from all different parts of the world and just talk about the one thing we all love, which is wrestling and creating wrestling content. And I've gotten to this point now where I'm just kind of creating whatever content I kind of feel. I mean, I'm doing 4 shows a week at this point, so I'm just like, I must have some kind of love and appreciation and a distraction for myself. At the end of the day, I'm doing this for a distraction from whatever's going on in my life as well. So it's just kind of nice to talk for this last hour and just go, okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just doing what I'm doing, and this has just become normal. It's a part of my week now, is to do these shows and whatever it may be. So I want to thank you all for coming on, again, being honest and open. I'm sure we need to chat again, because I'm sure there's a lot more stuff we could go into. And it's a good little group of people, so I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. So this is your chance to put yourselves over and do all the promoting you need to. This is where you can name drop all you want, Rob. This is where you can just go for it. Go hammer and tong. Fowl, start with you, and we'll go around the room. Where can we find your stuff? Talk about Radio Fowl, everything that's going on.
Cool. Oh my God, what is happening with my voice? Cool, everyone. Hey, Hi, I'm Fowl Original. You can find me on @Fowl_Original. Radio Fowl is now starting up, which is @Radio Fowl. Transmissions will be coming out soon, but please wait on that. Now, like with Radio Fowl, there's supposed to be stuff that's so you can find me on Radio Fowl. That's what I'm pushing at the moment. Like, go to linktr.ee/Radio Fowl or radiofowl.com. Now, the whole idea of it is that I'm a little bit crazy, so I'm putting together an anti-network. So it's essentially a network that isn't a network. By that, there are going to be theme days. So a lot of inspiration has been taken from Josh here. Not enough to make it a legally identifiable knockoff. But I've got shows. So today, at the moment, I'm finishing editing the first episode of the Fowl Breakfast Show, which is a light entertainment breakfast show set within the Fowl universe. Interview with myself as the main event of that show and musical guest Madonna. And then on Tuesday is Document Tuesday. So this might be released tomorrow, but you'll get there. Document Tuesday is a short documentary, bite size. Wednesday, I'm off. I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/Fowl Wrestling. Then on Thursday, the audio release. Friday is something from the vault. And then Saturday, oh my bloody God. So Saturday is Surprise Saturday, yeah. And I'm so excited about this. Basically, I'm the only one that knows what's going to go out on that day every single Saturday. I don't want to let people know exactly what's going on. I want to pop the audience. I want to pop the podcasters. This is what I'm trying to do, yeah. So I'm pop you all. I want you all to see this and go, like maybe But so that's Saturday. So that's this Saturday. But yeah, go check out Radio Fowl. It's kind of like Josh. Like, I've got to the point now where I want to be able to do whatever the hell I want, and audio dramas and stuff like that is something I've been really passionate about, and this gives me a chance to do that. So there's a little bit of wrestling on the network, but there's also other things. So Radio Fowl, Radio Fowl, thank you for tuning in and getting on our wavelength. There you go. Total branding, all done last week.
If you listen to anything that I say for whatever time that you're listening to this for, follow Fowl and go and check out Radio Fowl, because Fowl is very much he has supported me throughout everything that I do, and it's only necessary and fair and what I want to do to help Fowl as much as I can. So go and follow Fowl stuff. Go listen to Radio Fowl. He's got the same we have very similar minds in terms of content, and just kind of putting out content that we want to do and just seeing if it works. And if it doesn't, then oh well. We have really no shame in our game. So go and follow Radio Fowl and just tweet with Fowl, because he'll tweet in GIFs, okay? He'll tweet in GIFs like crazy, and I appreciate that. I love a good GIF. Now, for those wrestling girls, I know you kind of drop shows every couple of weeks, and you have your YouTube and wherever else you're going, but plug away. Where can we find your stuff? Where can we find your Twitter? All of that good stuff, and promote anything you have coming up.
Yeah. That's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, where you get your podcasts. And we have a Patreon that we've been really going ham on. We used to have, now we only have a $1 tier a month, and we just drop stuff in there, preferably weekly. We actually are going to do a Q&A with like how to so join for I think that's it. I'm never good at this part, but make sure you follow us on Twitter. We're always on that, and let us know.
Yeah, go and follow and all that good stuff. Watch their Spotlight series and do anything you need to do with that kind of stuff. And I just really like, it's a different kind of show, and that's what I really appreciate about you guys. It's just, it feels different to anything else, because there is a lot of wrestling podcasts, and they can kind of just form into one, some of them, and there's just like the kind of bunch, and you're like, okay, this just sounds like whatever else is kind of going on. With you guys, there's a different vibe, and I usually have you guys on when I'm kind of editing or doing something else, and I'm just like, oh, I can just kind of take back, and okay, I'm learning as I'm kind of going about just these women's careers or whatever you're spotlighting at the time. But I appreciate it, and I'll always be a fan and continue to listen, so make sure you go and do that. Now, last but not least, we do have Rob. You've got a bunch of different stuff going on. Like you said, your website and your podcast and interviews that you got going on all the time. Plug away, put yourself over, name drop all you want. This is your chance. Where can we find your stuff?
That's mainly why I'm here. No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Open invite for all you guys to come on, do one of our prediction shows. We always do the predictions panels before like the WWE pay-per-views, the AEW pay-per-views. So I'd love to reach out to all you guys and have you on the show. Just get a little bit of flavor from everybody. It's always a lot of fun. Josh, thank you again for having me. The shameless promo, we are at bobculture.podbean.com on Podbean. We're also on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all that good stuff, anywhere you get your podcasts. We are trying to kind of get the video worked in. You know, I'm trying to follow in your guys' footsteps a little bit. I'm learning a lot. I just got the Twitch overlay made, as you can see, podcaster, and trying to get the Twitch going, trying to get the gaming going. I really want to get the YouTube off the ground. Fowl, I'd love to talk to you about that a little bit.
We will talk.
It's really cool. Oh my man, I look forward to it. And just you know,
and Patricia, if you want to talk as well. Sorry, I didn't want to cut in there, but yeah, Patricia, if you want to talk as well, after I'm open. You all know this. I literally just come around these places just to like speak to people. That's the only reason I came to this round table, Josh. You know that. You know this.
It's true.
Yeah. I super appreciate it because I mean I love the quality of your stuff. It's amazing. But yeah, so just more shameless promo at Bob Culture Pod on Twitter. At the Bob Culture Podcast on Instagram. And you know what? Like, I'll be honest, I don't love being on camera. I'm more about the podcast stuff, but it's the way of the world right now. And I'm trying to get it going a little bit more. And I appreciate you guys having me on. And I love you 3000.
Again, thank you all so much for just coming on and being honest and talking. I love this conversation. I love conversations that are just kind of free flowing and natural. That's what I've just been kind of, I guess, known to do. I hate saying that. It sounds so like pretentious and like, ugh. But I guess that's what I've just been coming to do, is just having conversations with people and not really having too much of a set structure. So I appreciate you guys just having an open conversation with me. That'll do us for this week on the Josh Robinson Show. You can catch all the other shows here on the Josh Robinson 00 Network, of course. I've got a slightly new schedule. You can see it all on my pin tweet on Twitter. At Josh Robinson 00 is where you'll find me pretty much everywhere. If you want to hang out with me on Twitch or whatever you're kind of doing, I'm always doing something. I guess I'll just put that out there. I'm always doing something. So whether I'm making dumb TikToks, I'm on Twitch, I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing something. So find me at Josh Robinson 00 pretty much verbatim everywhere. Of course, continue to rate this podcast 5 stars on Apple Pods. You can find us wherever you're kind of listening at this stage. Spread the word, like, share, subscribe on YouTube, all of that good stuff. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.